Hi, my name is Mark, and you're about to watch a message that was preached at Calvary Fellowship in Miramar, Florida. At Calvary, we exist to help people take their next step with God. And today, it is our prayer that this message does just that.
Good morning, Calvary Fellowship. Let's give it up for Liquid Takeover. Those guys sound awesome. Like John said, if you are in middle school or in high school, or you know someone who is, that happens every Friday night with this band and the great team that serves our youth here. So happy 4th of July, everyone. I'm happy you chose to came to church today on a holiday weekend. It shows your dedication, your commitment to the Lord. Either that, or the reservation didn't get booked on time, or you're afraid of the flesh-eating bacteria at the beach. Either way, I'm glad that you chose today to come here. You know, growing up, I loved summer vacations because summer vacations always meant road trips. Who loves a good road trip? All right? Some of us are either coming back from some or getting ready to take some now this summer. And one of the things I used to love about the road trip, was kind of, getting ready for it. Okay, where are we going? Okay, you got to pack shorts, you got to pack pants, figuring out what you want to pack. And my mom would do something that's a little out of the ordinary when it comes to preparing for trips. Right, a couple days before, she'd come back from the grocery store with a pile of bistec palomilla, all right? That, just thinly sliced steak, right? Who loves a good pan con bistec, Cuban steak sandwich? Right? Maybe some onions, the little, shoestring potatoes, okay? Now, who's a fan of a medianoche, Cuban midnight sandwich, okay? If you're not aware, a medianoche, a midnight sandwich, is basically a Cuban sandwich. All the inside's the same pretty much, but on a different bread, right? It's that soft, sweet egg dough bread, and when it gets pressed with the butter, you get the sweet bread and the salty butter, and it's almost lunchtime, okay? Now, my mom, being the mad scientist that she was, she would combine the two. She'd fry up all those steaks and use the medianoche bread, and then she'd wrap each one individually in aluminum foil, and she'd pack like 50 of them in this styrofoam container. And we'd hit the road, and I'd be sitting in the back seat with the styrofoam container full of like 50 steak sandwiches with the medianoche bread. And what that meant was, as we started our road trip, if someone was hungry, as long as there was a sandwich in that cooler, that's what you ate. Which, as you can imagine, day one was awesome. Those things were fresh. Those things were awesome. Day 3, pan con beef jerky. It was nasty. But listen, you do what sometimes you got to save a buck, right? But, one of the memories that I have of those road trips was thinking, man, this is awesome. When I grow up and I have a family of my own, I want to go on road trips. I want my kids to experience this as well. So now, as a father of 4, my youngest in pre-K, my oldest about to start high school, we've planned as many road trips as we can. Sometimes we can't plan big ones, but every once in a while, we get to plan an ambitious road trip. So a couple years ago, we planned a road trip over the holidays. Not in the summer, but it was over the holidays. We were going to leave on Christmas Day and spend New Year's at up in northern Georgia in the mountains. So, my wife and I, we start to prepare. The funny thing is, my wife is the really organized one in the family. I'm not. But when it comes to vacations, like the roles are flipped. So she's just like, whatever, no alarm clocks, I just want to go. And I'm like, no, what are you talking about? This is going to cost money. We got to plan, strategically. We got to squeeze every ounce of fun or excitement or whatever it is into this vacation. So we've got to plan the routes, plan the schedules. I know exactly how long it's going to take to get from point A to point B, including all like regularly scheduled bathroom breaks, okay? Because if you want to get from point A to point B, and that point A to point B is more than just a couple hours, there's going to be bathroom breaks. I've got kids, so that's another thing. How many of you have ever road trip with kids? Okay, I see a lot of faces of distress. Okay, I'm talking about little kids. All right. Have you ever tried to explain the concept of a scheduled bathroom break to a 4-year-old? Okay? Well, I thought I explained it pretty well. I said, Danny, this is my 4-year-old. I said, Danny, listen, there's going to be regularly scheduled bathroom breaks on this trip. So when you see that we stop and everyone goes inside to use the bathroom, you need to use the bathroom, son. Okay? Because when we get back in the car, you're not going to be able to use it again for another couple hours. All right? He kind of looks at me like whatever. But hey, fair warning. Okay, so we get ready on this trip. We hit the road, and we make a regularly scheduled bathroom break stop. The older ones kind of go on their own. My wife goes with the baby, who's 2 years old at the time, and I take Danny with me. And, by the time everyone makes it back to the van, Danny and I are the last ones to get there. My wife's like, what happened? I'm like, he didn't go. I'm like, what do you mean he didn't go? He said he didn't have to go, so he didn't go to the bathroom. I explained to him that he wouldn't be able to go to the bathroom for another at least 2.5 hours, but he still said that that's fine. He didn't have to go. I said, okay. All right, so we get in the van, and as luck would have it, no more than 5 minutes down the road, it starts. Pop, I got to go to the bathroom really bad. Poppy, I really got to go. I'm saying, Danny, look, I'm sorry, but it's not happening. We've been on the road for 5 minutes. You've got 2 hours and 25 minutes before you can go to the bathroom, right? Now, my wife, trying to hold back the laughter, she's like, listen, you can either decide to stop and go to the bathroom now, or we can stop very soon and clean up a big mess. So it's on you. I'm like, fine. So I gun it to the next exit. We're in northern Florida. I mean, it's not a scheduled stop, so I have no idea where we're at. It's like, listen, I'm hoping there's a bathroom here. So I pull off. I think it's like a Denny's or a Wendy's or something. I pull up, leave the keys in the van, say, baby, just keep the van running. I'll be out in a second. I grab Danny, grab some baby wipes, run in, open the door to the bathroom, and for the first time in my life, I truly understood what Abraham must have been thinking when he's leading his son Isaac to be sacrificed. Because this thing is, it's out of a movie, right? I'm like, listen, the van's running. They're waiting, okay? So I pull out the baby wipes. I start, taking off all the paper towels. I'm wiping down. I'm cleaning. I'm sterilizing as much as possible, making sure Danny doesn't touch anything. That's another thing. Whenever there's something that they can't touch, they have to touch. I say, Danny, don't touch anything. Don't touch anything. So finally, everything is sterilized. Everything is wiped down. Everything's ready to go. So, I get them because when they're that little, even though you clean the public restroom, you still kind of hold them over, because they can't touch it, right? There's no amount of toilet paper wrapped around the toilet that makes you safe as a parent. So, you're doing this, and you're like, okay, son, you can go now, right? You can go now. So he kind of looks at me, and he's just like, that face that their eyes just kind of, it's kind of like that. I'm like, he's like, I don't gotta go. I'm like, Danny, no, you have to go. So he gives me another one of these, and he farts, right? And then, what does a 4-year-old do when they fart? He giggles, right? And then he looks at me and he says, I'm done, right? So again, we're here. And this is it's just like, why do you do this to me? Why do you do this to me now? Don't you understand? Are you trying to ruin this vacation? I know it's a little dramatic, but if you would have understood my state of mind at the time, you'd understand. I'm like, Danny, why now? Why do you do this to me? And don't we all feel like that sometimes? We just want to know why. We've all been there. We're planning the perfect trip, right? We're planning the perfect marriage. We're looking for the perfect house. We're looking for the perfect school for our kids, right? We're looking for the perfect, whatever our next perfect thing is. And it seems perfect at the time, but then boom, it's not so perfect, not like we planned. In that bathroom, in that moment, I was asking myself, why? Like, how did I end up here in this bathroom, like, holding my son? Like, how did this moment culminate? Okay, you ever been there? Kind of wondering, finding yourself in a situation and be like, how did I end up here? Like, what led me here? Okay? And here's what I know. It's in these situations, in our trials, that when we understand the why, it helps us to get through them. Understanding the why helps us to get through them. And this is what I want to take a look at today. Why does God allow trials in our lives? So as we continue in our series, Songs of the Kingdom, it's a study that we're doing through the book of Psalms. I want to take a look at Psalm 62. And this is a psalm that was written by King David during his reign as king. And it's in this psalm that David is facing a huge, huge trial, right? And it's in this psalm, David's song, because remember, when Pastor George preached a couple weeks ago, he told us that the Psalms were God's mixtape to us. So this particular song, David's song to God, it's through this that we can begin to understand why God allows trials in our lives. So what is David's trial? Like, what exactly is he going through? Is he just having a summer vacation interrupted? Or, what's the extent of his trial? All right, so let's set this up, and I'll just kind of run down the story before we go into the psalm. So it's believed that this psalm is written during the time of Absalom's rebellion. Who's Absalom? Absalom is one of King David's sons, okay? And what happens is Absalom's sister, Tamar, is raped by Absalom's half-brother, Amnon, okay? If anyone here is from the Lifetime Network, you've got the beginnings of a great movie here, right? So Absalom has his sister raped by his half-brother, okay? So he looks to his father, King David, to do something, right? And what does David do? Absolutely nothing. I mean, nothing. Not a reprimand, not a slap on the wrist. King David does nothing. And this goes on for about 2 years, where Absalom is just, all this rage is building up. He's like, man, I can't believe this happened to my sister, and my dad's not doing anything about it, right? So he finally gets to the point where he goes, you know what, I'm going to take matters into my own hands. And what does Absalom do? He plans this party. He invites everyone, all his family, even his half-brother Amnon, right? And in that party, Absalom has all his servants kill Amnon in cold blood in front of all of David's other sons, okay? So at this point, Absalom, now fearing for his life, ends up exiled. Okay, so his sister's raped. Nothing's done about it. His dad has completely let him down. He in a moment of rage, kills his half-brother, seeking vengeance for his sister. Now he finds himself exiled. And for 3 years, he's exiled. And without any communication with his father, he's finally allowed to come back after 3 years, but he can't be in his father's presence. So now after those 3 years, he's back in Jerusalem, but he finds himself separated from his father, living in some other house in Jerusalem. And he decides, you know what? He starts to conspire against his father, King David, to overtake his throne, right? So he builds up an army, and he mounts a rebellion. And this is the trial that David's going through. This is where David finds himself, right? His family falling apart, his kingdom under attack. So how does he respond? How does he respond? And that's where we're going to start. We're going to look in Psalm chapter 62, verses 1 to 4. If you have your Bibles, you can open up to Psalm 62. If not, it's in your programs, and you can read along. And we're going to read the first 4 verses. Truly my soul silently waits for God. From him comes my salvation. He only is my rock and my salvation. He is my defense. I shall not be greatly moved. How long will you attack a man? You shall be slain, all of you, like a leaning wall and a tottering fence. They only consult to cast him down from his high position. They delight in lies. They bless with their mouth, but they curse inwardly. So you pause there and give me your attention. God allows trials in our lives because trials draw us closer to God. And that's the first fill-in in your outline. Trials draw us closer to God. So in this moment, what does David do? Does he freak out? Right? Does he freak out? God, how can you let this happen? Right? I'm your appointed king, and you're going to have all this happen to me now? No. What does David say? Truly, my soul silently waits for God. From him comes my salvation. He is my rock and my salvation. He is my defense. I shall not be greatly moved. David has no idea why this is happening, but he knows that God knows, and that's good enough for him. Right? As his enemies are drawing closer to him, he's drawing closer to God. Now, how about us? What do we do when we're under attack? God, no, why? Why is this happening? Right? Do we immediately assume that God's forgotten about us, that God's abandoned us? Or does our soul silently wait for God because we believe he is our rock, our defense, and our salvation? Look at what it says in 2 Corinthians chapter 12. The passage is in your outline. And basically, this is Paul speaking about the thorn in the flesh. And for those of you who are not familiar with this passage, the Apostle Paul talks about having this thorn in his flesh. And it's something that torments him. And we don't know if it's something physical or spiritual or emotional. Actually, the Bible's kind of vague as to specifically what this thorn is. And I'd like to think that God knew what he was doing, and that because it's something that we can apply basically to every area of our life. If they would have said the thorn in his side was this, then basically that limits the application to our life. Okay, but we're not limited here. So what we know is that this is a trial that Paul's going through. And it says in chapter 12, verses 8 to 10, 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you. For my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. Paul's pleading 3 times, God, why? Just take it from me. And what is the response from Jesus? My grace is sufficient. My power is made perfect in weakness. You know, earlier this week, Pastor George and I met with a couple that had contacted the church about a memorial service. And this memorial service was for their young baby girl who died just a few days after she was born. And, you know, having, you know, the idea of making this call to say, hey, you know, I know you contacted the church. And, I mean, all I can think about was, obviously, you know, my kids. And, you know, and talking to George has a beautiful little girl. You know, the only thing he could think about was, like, you know, what would be going through my mind if something like that happened to me? You know, so preparing to make that call was truly heartbreaking for me. And, you know, I remember making the call. You know, they came in, and I remember the father telling us that, you know, kind of, you know, growing up and now in his older age, he's, you know, a strong guy, healthy, he's a business owner. You know, whenever he'd go through tough times, his mom would tell him, hijo, pídele a Dios. You know, son, ask God. A very simple phrase. You know, but it stuck out to him. And he would tell us, I'd hear that and I'd be like, I don't need to ask God. I'm good. I've got this. He says, but for the first time in my life, you know, when my baby girl's life was in the balance, I find myself on my knees pleading to God. The first time, pleading to God. Please, please save my baby. And you know, he told us, he goes, if you save my baby, I'll do better. Right? And isn't that something that sometimes we do? We kind of negotiate in the sense that, you know, God, if you come through for me here, then I'll come, you know, I'll go ahead and be a better person. I'll be better. I'll do better. That father, like Paul, found himself pleading. And God's response, my grace is sufficient. You see, in a trial, we all have 2 choices. We can either choose to cast God aside and take matters into our own hands, right? Or we can take a situation that weighs us down, that's bigger than us, and give it to the one who is bigger than us. Jesus said, my power is made perfect in weakness. God wants us to draw closer to him, and trials give us an opportunity to do just that. But that's not all. That's not all. Let's continue. In Psalm 62, take a look at pick it up in verse 5. My soul waits silently for God alone, for my expectation is from him. He only is my rock and my salvation. He is my defense. I shall not be moved. And God is my salvation and my glory, the rock of my strength, and my refuge is in God. Trust in him at all times, you people. Pour out your heart before him. God is a refuge for us. If you pause there and give me your attention. God allows trials in our lives because trials test and strengthen our faith. Now, maybe when I first started reading these verses, you're like, hey, wait a second, you just read that a little while ago, right? There's a lot of similarities between the first 4 verses and these next 4 verses. But there are subtle differences that we don't want to miss, that are important and that are intentional. These differences show an increased confidence and strength by David throughout this trial. In verse 1, he says, truly my soul silently waits for God. And what we read now in verse 5 is David instructing his soul, wait silently for God alone. So in verse 1, his soul was silently waiting. And in verse 5, he's got to tell his soul to silently wait. You think maybe his soul was getting a little bit anxious at that time? He's got to almost like reprimand his soul. Enemies are coming. He doesn't see really God doing anything, but he knows, right, that this is a moment of trial, and he's got to remind his soul to wait silently on God. And it's kind of dangerous when we're unwilling to wait on God. His answer doesn't come quick, at least quick enough, for us. And we're like, that's it. He's not going to be here. He's not showing up. And we immediately assume that God's out of the picture. I mean, thinking about it, do you know why David had to tell his soul to wait? My guess is because when it comes to trials, I think we all get a little bit of what we call middle child syndrome. Are there any middle children in the room? Who's a middle child? Look at that. Most of them are on the end. They don't even want to sit in the middle because they want to be either first or last, but not in the middle. Well, this is a safe place for you. I want you to know that we haven't forgotten about you. Okay? All right? So power to all the middle children. But basically the science behind this syndrome, this middle child syndrome, is, the first kid, right, they're special. They're the first, right? They're always going to hold a special spot in their parents' hearts because, they were the first, they're the first kids. And then the last one, the baby, well, they're the baby, right? And everybody loves the baby. They're the last ones that do all the cutest things. They get a lot of attention, right? And then the one that's stuck right in the middle is kind of just left out of the mix, right? And this is basically middle child syndrome. They feel lost in the mix somehow, okay? We have 4 kids, and my son Alejandro, he was our second child. To us, he is the quintessential middle child, okay? I mean, there can be no sign of adversity without frying everything. Oh, man, that's it. And everything is absolutes. This is never gonna happen, right? Perfect example. Driving him home from basketball practice last Monday. We're in the car and say, hey, Pop, do you think Mommy can cut my hair tonight? Because, it's getting kind of long, and I got a basketball game tomorrow, and I want to see if maybe she can fix my fade. Now, I know my wife's schedule during the week, okay? 4 kids, it doesn't matter if you're in school or in summer. Sometimes you're busier during the summer. It wasn't going to happen on a Monday night. I just knew it wasn't going to happen. So I said, Papa, listen, I'm sorry, but I don't think your mom's going to be able to cut your hair tonight. What? What are you talking about? See, I'm never going to get my hair cut. Why can't I just go to a barbershop? I'm like, kids, slow down. Slow down. I didn't say your mother was never going to cut your hair. Okay, I'm just telling you, it's not going to happen tonight. And no, you're not going to a barbershop. Why would you go to a barbershop? Your mother has always come through for you. Your hair's not, down to your knees. Every time you need a haircut, your mother cuts your hair. She's always coming through for you, right? And so there's circumstances affecting why his mom can't cut his hair that he's not aware of. He's just assuming that, like some of us, kind of the universe kind of revolves around us. So if something doesn't happen to us or for us, okay, it's not going to happen at all. So unaware of these circumstances, sometimes we kind of put ourselves in that same situation, right? There's circumstances that God is at work in that we don't understand, okay? And we're not aware of God's bigger plan. I want to take a look at 2 passages. 2 passages, they're in your outline. The first one is found in the book of James, chapter 1, verses 2 to 4. It says, consider it all joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance. And let endurance have its perfect result, so that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. In the next passage, it's right below in your outline, 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 6 to 7. So be truly glad. There is wonderful joy ahead, even though you must endure many trials for a little while. These trials will show that your faith is genuine. It is being tested as fire tests and purifies gold, though your faith is far more precious than mere gold. So when your faith remains strong through many trials, it will bring you much praise and glory and honor on the day when Jesus Christ is revealed to the whole world. The testing of our faith produces endurance, the endurance we need to withstand trials and wait silently on God. And this is what we see David's faith doing as it's being tested, right? In verse 2, we see it says, I shall not be greatly moved. That's David's statement. I shall not be greatly moved. Now in verse 6, he's saying, I shall not be moved. Again, a subtle difference. I shall not be greatly moved. Okay, greatly moved. You may be a little moved, but just not greatly moved. But now in verse 6, with increased confidence, increased strength, and increased trust in the Lord, I shall not be moved at all. There is a difference in the David that wrote verse 2 from the David that wrote verse 6. David got the point. he did not want to become the middle child, right? So we've seen how God allows trials to draw us closer to him. We've seen how they test and strengthen our faith. Let's take a look at how this song ends for David. We're going to go to verse 9 of Psalm 62. Surely men of low degree are a vapor, men of high degree are a lie. If they are weighed on the scales, they are altogether lighter than vapor. Do not trust in oppression, nor vainly hope in robbery. If riches increase, do not set your heart on them. God has spoken once, twice I have heard this, that power belongs to God. Also to you, O Lord, belongs mercy, for you render to each one according to his work. So you pause there and give me your attention. Finally, God allows trials in our lives because trials teach us to trust in God. This is it. This is the end game for David, right? This is why David knows that his enemies will not prevail. This is how we can know that our trials will not prevail. I mean, where was the trust placed for his enemies? In wealth, in oppression, right? In status, okay? David here is warning his people not to place their trust in these things, and this is a warning to us as well. In Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 to 6, it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. This is a promise for us. He shall direct our path, but it requires a step from us, right? That promise needs to be activated by action on our part. It needs to be activated by our trust and obedience. See, back in 2009, I was given an opportunity to come on staff in full-time ministry here at Calvary. And when that opportunity was presented, I said no. Why? Well, because at that time it was a theater that met in a church. And, I mean, how much could they pay me? What's their benefit package like? I got a family to support. I mean, back then it wasn't 4 kids, but it was 2, and we're on our way to 4. You know, so all these things are going through my mind. My answer, I'm sorry, I really don't feel called to ministry. I mean, I love Calvary. My family goes to Calvary. We'll continue to serve. We love the church. But I don't really feel called to ministry. In the back of my mind is, I don't know. I mean, I got a great job now. I mean, I've been there for 11 years. I love what I do, and I love where I'm doing it. I'm going to retire in my job. Yeah, they must have me mistaken for somebody else. Fast forward no more than 3 or 4 months from that phone call, and I find myself laid off and without a job. You can only imagine how your mind kind of rewinds back to certain certain days in your life. And I remember that call, and I remember thinking why I said no. And now all the reasons why I said no were gone, right? That paycheck was gone. The benefits package was gone. That job security was gone. You know, it was like God was throwing a lifeline, but I didn't see it, right? I was putting my trust in all these other things, you know. And he's like, listen, there's a trial that's coming up. I'm preparing you for something. And at that moment in my life, I said, you know what? I'm going to say no. Now, I didn't heed David's warning in verse 10. Do not set your heart on them, on those things. Okay? But verse 11 reminds us that power belongs to God. And look what else it says. Also to you, O Lord, belongs mercy. You see, God was merciful. And after a couple months of being laid off, you know, he blessed me with another job. I was able to provide for my family. But I was absolutely miserable. I hated what I was doing. It was the same industry, but I was making less money. I had the commute. I was far from home with little kids at home, and I was miserable. I mean, I drive up to work, no lie, every single day. Park my car, take a deep breath, close my eyes, and say, God, I know you don't want me to be miserable. I know this is not what you want for me. You know, you've got something better for me. Help me to endure this. That's what I saw. I mean, I was glad I had a job, but I knew it was a trial that I had to endure. Why? I said, I didn't heed his call the first time around, okay? But you know what? Fast forward a couple years from there, God was faithful. He answered my prayer, and he gave me a job that was closer to home, more money, and I loved what I did. And he prospered me there. And I said, wow, that's it. I endured the trial, and this is my reward, right? And it's one of those things you kind of, pat yourself on the back, and you're like, all right, bro, you did good. You did good. You endured, and now God, God's blessed you. And he did. He blessed me. I worked there. I loved working there. Even got a promotion. And then last year, I got another call from Calvary. Say, hey, we'd love you to consider coming on staff, full-time ministry. I'm like, wait a second. I thought we went through this, and I said no, and you were good with that because even though I had a horrible job for a while, you gave me a good one now, and I got a great job now. Why now, right? So there I was with another decision to make. Do I trust in great paycheck, great job, close to home, love what I do, right? Or do I trust in God and understand that he was giving me a second chance at this, okay? And maybe some of us are here today wishing that we had a second chance at something, a second chance with our marriage, a second chance with our kids, a second chance with our parents, right? Listen, I have great news for you. God is a God of second chances. Maybe you're here today and you're trusting in everything, right? And everything but God. You're trusting in your wealth, in your possessions, in your relationships. Okay? Maybe you place your trust in everything, and everything up to this point has failed you. I'm here to tell you that God will not fail you. David chose to trust God, and his kingdom was restored. His enemies were defeated. James chapter 1 verse 12 says, "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him." If you want to persevere, if you want to stand the test, if you want to receive the crown of life that God has promised, trust in God alone. You know, the father that I mentioned earlier, we talked about him negotiating. God, if you save my baby girl, I'll do better. Well, God, his baby girl passed away and went to be with Jesus. But the story doesn't end there. Actually, the story's far from ending. You see, you remember him telling George and I, at that moment, I remember saying to myself, God, I don't understand why you chose not to save my baby. And I know I will never understand why you chose not to save her. But I can still make a choice to be better and to do better. And for him, maybe that meant to be a better husband, a better father, a better man. Okay? So maybe some of us here find ourselves kind of in the middle of it, right? With a trial weighing down on us like a ton of bricks. And you're asking yourself, why is this happening? Why is my marriage falling apart? Why can't I talk to my kids? Why are we losing our house? Why? What will we choose? What will our choice today be? God has not abandoned us. God has not abandoned you. He wants to meet you here today. Wait silently for me alone. I am your rock, your refuge, your salvation. Trust in me, and you shall not be moved. If you can, I'd ask you to close your eyes and bow your head. We can pray together. Heavenly Father, thank you because all power belongs to you, but so does all mercy. Help us to wait on you, to trust you, and see us through every trial, every hardship. Lord, help us not to trust in things that fail us and fade away. That we might experience your blessing and your reward. Your Son Jesus endured the greatest trial of all when he gave his life for us, all because you love us and want to spend eternity with us. Thank you for that gift. And as we remain in prayer with every head bowed and every eye closed, maybe you're here today and you have a choice in front of you, a choice to continue the path you're on, or a choice to start putting your trust in God, a choice to put your trust in things that always let you down, things that fail you over and over again, or a choice to trust the God to whom all power belongs, the God that strengthens, heals, comforts, and forgives. Today can be the day that you decide to trust God with everything. If this is you, if this is your crossroads, and you want to make a decision today to trust God with everything, I'm just going to ask you to do one simple thing. Every head is bowed, every eye is closed, everyone is still in an attitude of prayer. I'm just going to ask you to do one thing, and that's to raise your hand. Raise your hand if today you're ready to make that choice. Give everyone an opportunity. God bless you. I see your hands. I see your hands. God bless you. God bless you. Thank you, Jesus. Father, thank you for so many hands raised, decisions to trust you, you alone. Starting today, I pray they begin to experience what it means to trust you with their lives, with their trials, with their salvation. If you raised your hand this morning, I just want you to do a simple thing. I want you to repeat a prayer after me. It's a simple prayer of invitation asking God into your life. And actually what I want to do is I want the whole church to support these people by repeating this prayer along with me and supporting them. Heavenly Father, I open my heart and I invite you in to be my God, my Father, my Savior, my friend. Forgive me my sins. Wash me clean. I've decided today to follow Jesus. From this day, I'm yours. In Jesus' name, amen.
I hope you enjoyed the message. If today you want to take your next step with God and give your life to Jesus, we have a free gift for you. All you got to do is go to mycalvary.com/begin. I also want to encourage you, share this message with your friends and your family, and also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. From all of us at Calvary, God bless you.